Yeah. Okay. I have some breaking news that I just heard. I wanted to share with you. I want you guys to be the first to know, in case you didn't already hear it. All congressmen in the U.S. and congresswomen and senators have just announced that they are going to remove the locks on their private residences as of today, and each is going to take in an unclarified number of unvetted illegal immigrants into their homes indefinitely. Right? They're also generously going to provide medical care, education, and food. Just kidding. No, they didn't, and no, they won't. But that's what's exactly being asked of the American people by erasing the integrity of our southern border. This would be a really nice thing to do. It really, truly would, if only we lived in utopia. And it sounds especially compelling when we think of people who are fleeing the absolutely horrific madness of war zones right now. But the vast majority of us, indeed, are descendants of people who came here from other places, by definition. Unslaved people, unless you're enslaved, right, you move for advantage. But according to tonight's speaker, a plain-spoken New Yorker, quote, "You can't be part of this country unless you respect the laws of this country and the people that protect you, the people that enforce the laws." Tom Homan understands the basic principle of a gate with a lock on it. And by definition, a country has borders and therefore rules about immigration. In 2017, Tom was appointed by President Trump as the acting director of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And he's also the founder of Homeland Strategic Consulting. In his role, this meant managing 20,000 special agents, officers, and other employees, managing an annual budget of more than $8 billion. I hope he's going to correct me if I got that wrong, but that's a B if I understood it correctly. $8 billion at more than 400 offices in the United States in 46 countries. He's a 34-year veteran of law enforcement, serving, I believe, under 5, and I think maybe I have that wrong, it may be 6 presidents. He's served as a police officer in New York, a U.S. Border Patrol agent, a special agent with the former U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service. So I usually don't just go over a list of awards, but Tom Homan's are most notable. Not just because they come from both sides of the aisle, but they demonstrate a respect he garners from people inside the field. And I can tell you by watching Tom with the gentleman who drove him and secured him here tonight and his interactions with them, Tom is the real deal. Those are his people, and those are the people who protect us. In 2015, from President Obama, he received the Presidential Rank Award for distinguished exemplary leadership and extensive accomplishments in the area of immigration. In 2018, the Distinguished Service Medal in recognition of exceptionally distinguished and transformational service to strengthen Homeland Security for the United States. He also was Law Enforcement Person of the Year from the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association that represents over 26,000 law enforcement officers. That's quite a compliment coming from the inside. And lastly, in 2021, Tom was awarded the National Security Medal by President Trump for his distinguished achievement in the field of national security through exceptionally meritorious service to our nation. Dave, may we have the video, please?
Well, it was an intense day, to say the least, on Capitol Hill today as former acting ICE Director Tom Homan delivered an impassioned defense of Border Patrol agents ripping into the inaction of congressional lawmakers. Listen to this exchange with Illinois Democrat Jesus Garcia.
Mr. Homan, I'm a father. Do you have children? How can you possibly allow this to happen under your watch? Do you not care? Is it because these children don't look like children that are around you? I don't get it. Have you ever held a deceased child in your arms?
First of all, your comments are disgusting. I've served my country. I've served my country for 34 years.
I find your comments
this is out of
disgusting
control.
as well.
I've served my country for 34 years, and yes, I held a 5-year-old boy in my arms in back of that tractor trailer. I knelt down beside him and said a prayer for him because I knew what his last 30 minutes of his life were like, and I had a 5-year-old son at the time. What I've been trying to do my 34 years serving my nation is to save lives. So for you to sit there and insult my integrity and my love for my country and for children, that's why this whole thing needs to be fixed. And you're the member
We
of Congress.
agree on that.
Fix it.
We agree on that, but I disagree. But I also disagree with your characterization of immigrants as prone to criminality.
People for 3 decades on this.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, before I ask my questions, since it has not yet been done, I think it's important to really make sure that the jingoistic, bigoted testimony of Mr. Homan is called out as nearly completely untrue, as being an outrage, and as a former official directing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, he should know better. So, making sure that I am...
Mr. Chairman.
No, this is my 5 minutes.
What did I say was inaccurate?
Excuse me.
Okay,
I'm not asking a question.
Okay,
or-
the gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes. She's made her point, and I will try to resolve any other issues at the end of her questioning. Okay.
Thank you. So I just think it's important that it's not accepted as accurate testimony.
Okay. Mr. Homan, is there a crisis on the border?
Of course.
And has there been a crisis there for a long time?
Yes.
I just want to get, because your testimony was at the broader issue, and this is critically important, but we also have a broader issue there. We got unbelievable numbers we've seen on the border with apprehensions and everything else, right?
Absolutely. If I can respond to the earlier remark from Wasserman Schultz, I forgot more about this issue than you ever know. So if you say my testimony is inaccurate, it's wrong. Everything I said here is accurate. Bottom line. If you want to go toe-to-toe, I'm here. I'm here in my own time to speak to the American people about what's false
I'm
and
sure
what's
happy
fact.
to go toe-to-toe with you, Mr. Homan.
Well,
happy
I'm
to do
here.
that any day.
But you got to let me respond to your question rather than
I didn't
dropping a
ask you a
bomb and
question.
running away.
It was my time.
So
and I
there is a
wasn't asking
crisis
you a
on the
question.
board.
And we found a memo. Dates back to April 23rd of 2018, where there was an official recommendation to, quote, pursue prosecution of all amenable adults who cross our border, quote, illegally, even though this applied to legal asylum seekers in practice, including those presenting with a family unit between ports of entry in coordination with DOJ. Here is the memo that I would like to submit to the congressional record.
What is the date on that?
It is the memorandum for the Secretary from Homeland Security.
Date.
April 23rd, 2018, subject increasing prosecutions of immigration violations.
Without objection.
And so I looked at this memo, and it seems like this is the source of it. And it seems as though, Mr. Homan, that you are the author. It says here from yourself, Kevin Michalinen, and Francis Cisna. Is this correct? Did you sign the memo?
I'd have to see what you...
I'd be happy to provide it. And we'll provide it over, but I would like to note that here it says the official recommendation. There were 3 different options presented. The third included the option for family separation. This initiative would pursue prosecution of all amenable adults, including those presenting with a family unit. Mr. Homan, your name is on this. Is this correct?
Yes, I signed that memo.
So you are the author of the family separation
I
policy.
am not the author of this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo.
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation.
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation, of the many that you recommended family separation,
I recommended zero tolerance.
which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan, with
family.
all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the memo is submitted to the record for review.
Is there anything you'd like to respond to what you've heard today?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to Acting Chairman Jay Paul on your comment about the Trump administration moving money around for more detention beds. I'd like to remind you, under the Obama administration, we did that most of the years he was president. We moved money around. DHS is called reprogramming. We did that under the Obama administration. I don't remember any hearings on that. And also, I'd like to remind you that under the Obama administration, I mean, you're quick to point out that the cages were built under Obama administration. I was there. Family detention, we had 100 family beds under Obama administration. We built 3,000 more. So when there was a surge in FY14 and FY15 on the border, Congress was quick to give all the money we needed to build detention facilities, get transportation contracts. We reprogrammed money out of the majority of the years she was president. That was fine. Under Obama administration, FY12, we removed 409,000 people, half of what was removed last year. There was no hearings on that. So this is about transparency. Let's be factual about it.
The time of the gentleman has expired. Since you did address some comments at me, I'll just say that I didn't like it under the Obama administration either. In fact,
but be honest with the American people.
Excuse me,
You can't point out faults in the Trump administration when it happened under the Obama administration. That's dishonesty. It's pathetic and it's sad.
Mr. Homan, I control the time, and I am the chairwoman of the committee. Thank you for respecting that. I didn't like it under the Obama administration, and I'll remind you, Mr. Homan, that you also testified before Congress in support of the Obama's Priorities Enforcement Program before the Senate Judiciary Committee on May 19th, 2016, which had a very different approach.
Well, can I respond to that?
Can
I respond to that?
No.
Of course
not.
not.
And I want to give you some time, but I do want to ask one quick question, and I want to make one quick statement. I find it very offensive that anybody would compare any federal employee, frankly, to someone who, the Gestapo or running Nazi concentration camps. That is very offensive. I have 15 seconds and I yield it to you.
Thank you for saying that. I wish somebody in Democratic leadership would say that out loud. Look, you want to know why there's 50,000 people in detention? You want to know why we have 1 million illegal entries in the United States? You want to know why we have these issues? Because you have failed to secure the border. You have failed to work with this president to close the 3 loopholes we've asked for 2 years to close. So if you want to know why this issue exists, you need to look in the mirror. You have failed American people for not securing the border and closing loopholes.
Mr. Homan, please respect the chair and the authority of the chair. The time of the gentleman has expired.
I've asked you politely to let me go beyond my time, and you let other people go beyond their time, but not to Tom Homan. He don't get to go beyond his time.
Mr. Homan, we have approved an agreement between the Republicans and the Democrats with the ranking member. We increased the time of one member of Congress who was interrupted by a protest. That is done with the approval of the ranking member. Please respect the chair's authority.
I respect the chair's authority, but the chair...
Mr. Homan!
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
The witness will suspend.
Please welcome one of America's favorite shrinking violets, Mr. Tom Homan.
You know, that shit never gets old. You know, AOC's a moron. She, you know, that morning, I was telling over dinner, that morning before I left that day, my wife says, why do you keep doing this? You're retired and they're going to call you names. They're going to call you a racist, a bigot. They're going to attack the men and women of ICE and men and women of Border Patrol. Why you put yourself through this? Because it's going to be a hateful day for you. And I said, well, first, I love my country. And second, I promised the men and women of ICE and the Border Patrol that even though I retired, I would never abandon them. So that's why I keep fighting for them. And she goes, well, I'm going to say a prayer for you. I looked at her and said, say a prayer for the first Democrat. Pisses me off because I'm not in the military. And sure enough, she did it. You know, AOC thought she had her Perry Mason moment with her memo. I found a memo. Okay. I signed that memo again today. They talk about, let me just talk about the family separation real quick. It was zero tolerance. I started as a cop in New York. Zero tolerance is used by law enforcement all over the country, whether it's drug enforcement, DUI enforcement, prostitution, whatever it happens to be. People are dying crossing that border. 31% of women are getting sexually assaulted. I've seen a lot of terrible things in my career, a lot of death, things that I still have nightmares about, things that I had to actually go see somebody. And I'm a pretty tough guy. So we had an opportunity when the numbers are out of control on the border, and I see how many women are being raped, how many children are dying, how many billions the cartels are making, how some of these migrants are tortured because they can't pay their fees. I thought zero tolerance was worth a shot. If it could save lives, why not? So it wasn't about separating families. It's about prosecuting those who enter the country illegally, which is a crime. Let's prosecute them. Maybe it'll slow it down. It's about saving lives. And these people wanted to keep talking about family separations. Law enforcement separates families every day across this country when a parent's arrested with a child. And this comes from the same people who, they scream and yell at me about family separation. And these are the same people who have no problem with separating a baby from a womb and killing it. So don't preach to me. So, you know, these folks on Capitol Hill, there's a lot of good congressmen up there. They're not all bad, but the thing about testimony nowadays is that it used to be they bring in experts to identify a problem, and they'd ask you a lot of questions, then Congress would try to come up with a solution. It's not like that anymore, especially with who controls Congress now. It's about bringing you up, make a 5-minute speech, and not let you respond to the questions. And at a certain point, you can only sit there and listen to how much of a bigot I am and how much a racist I am. And one thing that wasn't covered, and I was called a bigot and a racist, I said, well, if I'm a bigot and a racist for enforcing the law, what's that make you? You wrote the law, for God's sakes. I'm not making this shit up. I'm doing what you told me to do. And at a certain point, during that last testimony, I just sat there and I said, at a certain point, I said, okay, I've had enough of this shit. I'm going to start defending, you know, myself, and I'm not going to let them lie to American people. That's why the last J-Paul, I wouldn't shut up, because she sat there and lied to the American people, and I'm under oath. They're not. And I'm not going to let it happen. So she can pound that gavel. She can shove that gavel where the sun don't shine, because I'm going to tell the American people what's happening on the border, because lives are being lost. You know, it's a tragedy what's going on the border. And I wasn't going to be shut up. So, you know, some people think I was disrespectful. And maybe so, but I wouldn't change the thing I did, because I had to get the truth out to the American people. I've earned the right to talk, because I've served my country for 35 years. I buried Border Patrol agents. I buried ICE agents. And I'm never going to stay in there and let them badmouth the finest 1% this country has. I will defend them to the day I die. One thing the bill didn't show with Walshman and Schultz after the hearing, the chief of staff came up to me and wanted a copy of the paperwork. I said, I'll be waiting for the indictment. So what are you talking about? He says, Walshman and Schultz accused me of lying under oath. It's her duty to charge me with a crime. I'll be waiting for it. I said, when we go to court, we'll find out who told the truth today. Let her know everything she owns, I'm going to own. Of course, no charges were brought up. So quick, real quick, where's Tom Homan come from? I just got to tell you one real quick story. So I started out as a cop in New York, and I grew up in a small town, 2,500 people. You know, I grew up, milking cows, and so I'm not a genius. I'm not a smooth politician. I grew up in. My dad was a cop. My grandfather was a cop. Of course, I wanted to be a cop. My dad later became a judge, but I always knew I wanted to be a cop. And so I became Border Patrol agent after I was a police officer, and I climbed the ranks. My biggest honor in my career was I was the first ICE director that actually came up through the ranks, ever. Which means the 20,000 men and women that worked for me, I never asked them to do a single thing that I didn't do myself. So I came up through the ranks. So that was my biggest honor. But in 2017, I actually retired. I announced my retirement in 2016 because I thought for sure I'll be working for Hillary Clinton. This is a true story. So, you know, in September, I announced I was going to retire after 33 years. Because I just spent 8 years with Obama. I didn't want to spend another 4 years with Hillary Clinton as my president. And, you know, everybody thought Donald Trump didn't have a chance. So I announced my retirement. And I gave him, you know, several months to find a replacement. It's hard to find a replacement at somebody at that level. And I retired, announced my retirement. And after the election, Trump won. My wife said, now what the hell are you going to do? And, but I already announced my retirement. And they already, you know, I already accepted a position with an outside corporation, making a hell of a lot more money than I did as ICE director. I signed a contract, so I was ready to go. And the day of my retirement party in January of 2017, if I'm getting this right, my retirement party, it was a sad day for me because I don't know if there's any cops here, but you know, or military guys, when you spend 30-some years carrying a badge and gun, that's who you are. And that day I was going to hang that badge and gun up for my life. So it was a real depressing day for me. My family was there, and it was a very emotional day for me. And we had a lot of people show up, and at the end, I was shaking everybody's hands, thanking them for coming. And my chief of staff, who's no longer my chief of staff, came up to me and said, you got an emergency phone call in your office. I said, okay. So I went up, and it was John Kelly, who was Secretary of Homeland Security. At the time, I know this is bad timing. Well, President Trump would like you to stay and run the agency, which was a 3-step promotion. I was third in command at the time. And I says, okay, well, bad timing. I just retired. And John Kelly, I remember word for word, he says, no, you didn't. Paperwork's on my desk. It hasn't been signed yet. And I said, well, sir, all due respect, I've already signed a contract with this company. I got to find out what my obligations are, and I need to talk to my family. This is Friday. Can I have till Monday to answer? He goes, certainly. He goes, but before you hang up, let me leave you with this thought. And John Kelly, I don't know what your opinion is, John Kelly. I respect the man. He served his country for 40 years, lost his son in battle. Kind of went out in a bad way, but he's an American hero serving his nation as a Marine for as long as he did. He says, before you hang up, I want to leave you with one thought. He goes, the President of the United States is asking you, a career law enforcement officer, to stay a little bit longer and help him. He needs you. I'll talk to you on Monday. So after a weekend of fighting with my wife, who said, you're going to make a hell of a lot more money, where are you going? I called the company, and they said, certainly, if the president needs you. So long story short, I called him up Monday, so I'm back, I'll come. The following day, I'm in Air Force One with the greatest president of my lifetime, Donald Trump. And I'm not afraid to say that. I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan, so it was 6. Starting with Ronald Reagan, I respect every president I ever worked for, even ones I disagreed with, because they're the president elected by American people. Respected all of them. But nobody has done more to secure our borders than President Trump. That's just a stone cold fact. No one did more to have the backs of law enforcement and our military than President Trump. He did great things for this country. And never agreed with everything he's ever said or done, but he's one hell of a president. I was down, I gave a speech at his rally a couple weeks ago, and before I went to give a speech, I told him, I said, you know, you're one badass president. He secured the border, ladies and gentlemen, and in the left, they want to this is when Trump was still in office, when I was screaming and yelling, because they want to say Trump's policies are inhumane. There's nothing farther from the truth. when you secure the border, you save lives. Now let's talk about Joe Biden. He says his policy is much more humane. More migrants have died in the first year of Joe Biden than any year I remember. More migrants are dying than ever. Open borders drive the most vulnerable people, put themselves in the hands of criminal cartels, and they die. More migrants have died under Joe Biden, humane policies, than under Trump. Think about that. Over 100,000 Americans have died from opioid fentanyl overdoses that come across that border. Because of his open borders policies, more fentanyl is coming across the border than any time in the history of this nation. So how's this policy more humane? More Americans are dying, more migrants are dying, cartels are making billions, 31% of women get sexually assaulted, children are being abandoned, dying in the river, or being abandoned in the desert, dying in the desert. Tell me how that's more humane. It isn't. When President Trump and our team had illegal immigration down to a 35-year low, a 40-year low, depending on what month you look at, illegal immigration was down 83%. How many women didn't get raped? How many children didn't die? How many billions did the cartels not make? How many people didn't die of fentanyl overdoses? President Trump saved lives. And I've done this for 35 years. I know that border. He saved lives, and that's why I appreciated him as president. What Joe Biden has done, I've worked, like I said, I worked for 6 presidents. Every president I worked for, even Obama and Clinton, they ran on, I want a secure border. They made certain moves towards securing the border. Some made more moves than others, but they all wanted some sort of secure border. It makes sense for a nation to have a secure border, protect our sovereignty. Every one of them. Then Joe Biden's the first president in the history of this nation who came into office and unsecured the most secure border in my lifetime. Who the hell does that? He came into office and unsecured the most secure border we've ever had, where there's less drugs, less illegal immigration, cartels making less deaths, and he opened it up. That's why, for the first time in my lifetime, I don't respect the president. He took the oath of office to protect this nation and follow our laws, and he's done the complete opposite. He came into office, and within a few months, wrote 90 executive actions and dismantled everything we did under the Trump administration and opened the border up. And what happens when you open the border up? Well, you're seeing what's happening right now. We went from the most secure border in my lifetime, again, a 35, 40-year low, to historic illegal immigration in a matter of months. That don't happen on accident. That's not mismanagement. That's not incompetence. That's by design. During his campaign, he said he was going to get rid of ICE detention. They were going to abolish ICE. They were going to have amnesty. They're going to have a moratorium on deportations. They're going to give free health care. When you make them kind of promises to the world, they're going to come. And he knows exactly what he did when he made those promises. Because remember, I was testifying, FY 14-15, he was the vice president. Alejandro Mayorkas, who's a secretary now, who should be impeached, he was a deputy secretary. I worked with these men, met with them many times. When we had a surge in 14-15, they know how we stopped it. They know how we stopped it. They know what causes it. They know how to stop it. And everything they're doing now is the complete opposite of what they know stops it. To this day, this administration has not done one thing to slow the flow. So Joe Biden sold our country out to become president. He knew he needed a progressive left to win the presidency, and he did it. And when he became president, got to give him credit, he kept his word. He signed executive actions to make it happen. First president in history in my lifetime that sold the nation out to become president and unsecured the border, which makes this country less safe. I don't care what your opinion is on illegal immigration. This is much more than immigration at this point. It's a humanitarian issue. People are dying at record numbers. when the border is open, it's open up to more criminals. Border Patrol arrested 16,000 convicted criminals coming across the border. Criminals don't want to be arrested. So there were 16,000 stupid ones. Last year, the first year on Joe Biden, there's over 600,000 gotaways. 600,000 gotaways. People that crossed the border illegally and were not arrested. Who the hell are they? Guarantee they're criminals. Criminals don't want to be arrested. Who else are they? So the border created a humanitarian crisis. It created a public safety crisis. It's created a public health crisis just because of COVID. This administration knowingly released thousands of people with COVID in the country. That's a fact. They know they had it, and they put them on a plane or bus anyways. They didn't test them, didn't vaccinate them, and put them on train or bus. Meanwhile, we were all locked down. So it created a public safety crisis, a public health crisis, a humanitarian crisis, and finally it created a national security crisis. Why do I say that? Because Border Patrol last year, first year under Biden, arrested 16 people on the FBI screening database. 16 people on the FBI screening database were arrested crossing the border. Terrorists don't want to be arrested. They want to get away. So of the 600,000, how many of them are known suspected terrorists? This should scare the hell out of all of us. Last month, 67,000 gotaways in 1 month. 67,000 people crossed this border last month. We don't know who they are. There's no fingerprints, there's no pictures, no biographical, no vetting, no background checks. We don't know who they are. 67,000 people. And if anybody thinks that I'm going to believe that none of them came from a country that support terrorism, they're crazy. Border Patrol has arrested people from 157 countries, many of them that sponsor terrorism. 67,000 1 month. At this rate, we're going to have over 800,000 gotaways this year. And when they left Title 42, God help us. If they've got 67,000 gotaways now, what's it going to be? They're arresting 7,000 to 8,000 a day. DHS is contemplating 18,000 a day. So if you think 67,000 a month is bad, what's it going to be when their work triples? It's going to be 150,000 gotaways a month. That's a realistic number. That's just scared the hell out of all of us. Look, after 9/11, I was around during 9/11, we created a lot of processes after 9/11 to make sure terrorists didn't come into this country. We created a visa security program. Anybody wants a visa comes to the United States, you got to be vetted. You get vetted beyond belief. You're run through numerous databases, including DOD intelligence databases. If there's any derogatory information on you or your friends or your relatives, you're not getting a visa. You're not getting a plane ticket because you go through the same database checks. So if you're somewhere in this world that wants to come here and blow something up, how are you going to come? The way 67,000 just did last month. If you don't think this whole world knows our border's open, 157 nationalities crossed that border. This is a national security issue that was created on purpose. And I'm pissed off about it. Now, how many terrorists cross the border? I don't know. Someday, sadly, we're going to find out. And that's why I'm out there fighting as hard as I can. Look, I've spent more time suing this administration. I've worked for the state of Texas, I've worked for the state of Florida, the state of Arizona. I've written more affidavits suing this president than I did as an agent. I never thought after serving 6 presidents I would retire and actually sue a president. That's what we're doing, and we're 4-0, baby, and we're going to keep going. I'm not going away. When the moratorium, and we put a moratorium on deportation, we beat them at that. We beat them at the social services for illegal aliens. We beat them at ICE priorities. We beat them at the Remain in Mexico. Now here's what the secretary will tell you. Every time his lips are moving, he's lying. He says, well, CDC, they control Title 42. I don't. If they decide to close it because they think this country's turning the corner on COVID, I can't control that. But you can control Remain in Mexico. Now, we sued him to put the Remain in Mexico back in, and we won. Federal court says you must reinstate Remain in Mexico. Now, that's been 7, 8 months. Last month, 187,000 arrests. They removed 56 people to remain in Mexico. We removed 56 people a minute under Trump. So I talked to Texas the other day. So you guys need to haul his ass in the court, contempt of court. The court ordered this to happen, and they're slow rolling it. That's why I'm saying this isn't mismanagement. This isn't incompetence. This is by design. This is open borders by design. And if you think these people are going anywhere, these millions coming in, they're not going anywhere. Because at the same time they opened the border up, they decapitated ICE, my old agency. The secretary's on record saying being in the country illegally is not enough to be arrested. In the middle of a crisis. He sent a message to the whole world. You can enter the country illegally, we're going to release you, and guess what? ICE can't arrest you because you're just here illegally. What else did he tell ICE to do? He told ICE he can no longer do worksite enforcement operations. And the number one reason people come to this country is to get a job. Now ICE can't walk into a worksite enforcement operation. So you can come here illegally, not be detained. Even if you go to court, many don't, even if you show up in court and a judge orders you removed, that removal order doesn't mean anything because ICE can't execute it. So the message to the world is come here and enter illegally, you won't be detained. Even if you lose in court, we're not going to arrest you and remove you. And besides that, you can go get a job because ICE can't arrest you there either. This is what they've done. They opened the border and shut down interior enforcement. They don't want these people going anywhere. And let me tell you, they got the same data I got. The Homeland Security Life Cycle Report says this. If you're detained during immigration proceedings and get an order from a judge, you're removed 99% of the time. If you're not detained, if you're a family unit, you leave 6% of the time. If you're unaccompanied child, you leave 3% of the time. If you're a single adult, you leave 22% of the time. They got the same data I got. They got the same report. They know by not detaining people, they're never going anywhere. Why is that? Why would they do that? Well, remember, Biden also overturned the Trump census rule. They'll be counted the next census, which will result in more seats in the House for the Democrats, which leads to perpetual power. This is about selling our nation out for future power of Congress. And, of course, they'll give amnesty. They'll think somebody will be voting Democrat. There's no other reason you'd want an open border. There's no downside on a secure border. There's no downside unless people dying. There's no downside unless women being raped. There's no downside unless overdose cases. There's no downside in secure border. There's no downside in taking billions of dollars away from the cartels. There's no downside. There's only one reason this is being done. It's being done by design. And to this day, I said a few minutes ago, to this day, no one in this room can tell me one thing this administration has done to slow the flow. Everything they're doing is a magnet for more to come. Just 2 weeks ago, they announced, well, they don't have to see a judge anymore if they claim asylum. A CIS employee at the port of entry can make that decision, which is going to be a rubber stamp. There's not even an adversary process anymore. They don't have to see a judge. They changed the rules of asylum. Asylum used to be you're escaping fear. This is what the statute says. You're escaping fear and persecution from your home government because your race, religion, political affiliation, or participation in a social ethnic group. Escaping fear and persecution from your home government. Well, this administration just said, well, we're going to include, let's include gang violence. Let's include domestic violence, neighborhood dangers. They changed the rules where we can claim asylum now. Because here's another data point they got. Again, Homeland Security report. 9 out of 10 Central Americans who claim asylum at the border never get relief from U.S. courts because either don't qualify or they don't show them court. Well, that's not a good number for the future Democrat Party. We need more people to get asylum. So what are we going to do? We'll change the rules. And they did. They did. And when they left Title 42, the Border Patrol was already overwhelmed. You know, I talked to a Border Patrol agent the other day. I was a Border Patrol agent. I wore that green uniform. I love every one of those men and women. The Border Patrol agent told me the other day that he's done about 30 years. And I was talking to a friend of his, too. It says he was getting dressed in the morning, put his uniform on, looking in the mirror, checking his uniform out like he always does, make sure his gig line's straight, looking proud. And for the first time in his career, he looked at himself in the mirror, and all of a sudden I turned the light on. He said, "I am now a part of the biggest smuggling organization in the world because I'm not allowed to enforce the law anymore. These people are going to come across the border. I'm going to process them, release them, and the taxpayers are going to pay for a plane ticket or a bus ticket to get him to his final destination." That's where we are as a nation. The United States government is completing the final step of a criminal conspiracy. I don't say that lightly. When you all see all these children coming across, a parent or a relative in the United States hires a smuggling organization, a criminal organization. They'll smuggle that kid in the trunk of a car or back of a tractor trailer, and they pay that smuggling organization to smuggle my child. They used to have to get him to Chicago or New York or Washington State. Not anymore. Just get him to the border because the United States government will deliver that child to the same person that hired a criminal organization to smuggle him here. This is the first administration that I know of in the history of this nation that's actually facilitating illegal immigration. They're bankrolling the criminal cartels in Mexico. Now, everything I'm saying, this isn't for shock value. This is just the stone cold truth. And that's why we all need to be pissed off. I'm exceptionally pissed off because I was part of a great administration that actually secured the border at a level we've never seen before. President Trump was a game changer. The Remain in Mexico program, that was his. Well, it was ours, but he instituted it. Third safe country agreements. I was sitting in the Oval Office, he goes, "Well, explain asylum to me." Escape me fear and persecution in your home government because of political affiliation, race, religion. He goes, "I get it." So let me ask you a question, Tom. If they leave Honduras and they get to Mexico, have they not escaped the fear and persecution from their home government? Yes. Then why in the hell don't they claim asylum in Mexico? They should. Well, damn it, that's what we're going to do. So he made agreements with Central American countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico, saying you will accept asylum from other countries because they've escaped persecution when they left that home government. And these three countries signed up for it. They fought it, but President Trump said, you're going to do it, or you're going to stop getting aid. They did it. Mexico put troops on their southern border and northern border because President Trump said, you're going to do this. It's against the law in Mexico to smuggle women and children, trafficking women and children. They didn't do anything about it. Trump says, how many of these people actually win asylum? Well, 9 out of 10 don't qualify. So why the hell would we let them in and let them loose? And you said, how many leave? 6%. Why do we keep doing that? We don't have to. Well, don't. Remain in Mexico. President Trump, I don't care what anybody thinks of the man. He came with some common sense. Says, why the hell are we doing stupid stuff? We can fix this. And the walls work. Even when I was in the Border Patrol, walls working. I'm going to tell you a story. It's in my book. When I was a third-year Border Patrol agent, about 3 o'clock in the morning, a sensor went off, a vehicle sensor. They pick up metal coming across dirt roads near the border. 3 o'clock in the morning, sensor goes off where it's not supposed to go off. Okay? No one should be out there at this time of night. Well, we stopped that truck, and it was the largest cocaine seizure in the history of the Border Patrol at the time. We had a utility truck full of cocaine. I was over a couple years ago, went to the IACP, International Chiefs of Police Association, so I just drove up my old Border Patrol station trying to reminisce, and I went to where that drive-thru was, where we arrested that guy. Big, beautiful wall there. No one's driving a truck through there now. Walls work. And when Jen Psaki stood at the White House, another liar, she stands at the White House press room and says, when she was first asked, why did you stop building the wall? Because they don't work. They're not effective. Knowing that if you go to CBP website, you can go there tonight. Every place they built a barrier, illegal immigration went down, illegal drug flow went down, and deaths went down. She stood at the White House and lied to the American people. The data is clear. Every place they built a barrier, these numbers went down. Why in the hell wouldn't you want it? Walls aren't meant to stop people, they're meant to slow people down. Families can't climb a wall. You get some 22-year-old good shape migrant, he may be able to get up that wall. You do. But if you touch that wall, you dig under that wall, you put a ladder against that wall, we're going to know about it. It's a smart wall. They work. And the worst it does is for the people that can't climb it, like the family units, specifically the family units, it funnels them to an area where Border Patrol can apprehend them. And not so much apprehending them, but care for them, because a lot of these people are in bad shape making that trek. Walls work. So this administration came in and did away with everything that worked. Everything that worked. And every time the secretary gets on national TV, says the border's secure, it's closed, I want to throw something at the TV set because he's lying through his teeth. I used to respect the man when he was deputy secretary. He believed in enforcement when Jay Johnson was secretary. Me and Jay Johnson didn't agree on a lot of things, but he was honest. Our secretary's dishonest. He lies. If his lips are moving, he's lying. And for the Secretary of Homeland Security, he's a Secretary of Homeland Insecurity, but for a man in his position to be trusted with the safety and security of this nation, to lie to American people what's going on, he needs to be impeached. And we take back Congress, that's what we need to do. And right behind him is the other one, Biden. And Kamala Harris, you don't know what the hell she's doing. She's supposed to be the border czar. What the hell has she done? Except embarrass this nation. She keeps saying, well, we're looking for the root cause. The root cause is right down the hall. Go to the Oval Office, there's your root cause right there. You know, I could talk to you guys 3 days. Because I say what I think. Half this country don't like me. I don't give a shit. I don't, because, you know, if they've seen what I've seen in my career, they wouldn't hate me. Most of them. They wouldn't hate me. I appreciate it. And they're not, look, my last day as ICE director, I wrote an email to every agent at ICE, and I told them, I said, look, I may be retiring from this position, but I promise you, I'll never abandon the mission. I'll never abandon having your six. These are our finest men and women. These Border Patrol agents. You know, President of the United States in his first speech, President Joe Biden, his first speech, he said, the last administration would have watched children starve to death on the banks of the Rio Grande River, did nothing about it. I actually got so mad I wanted to cry. The only humanity on that border are the men and women wearing a uniform. They saved over 12,000 lives last year. They saved lives, Mr. President. They don't watch children starve. What a terrible thing for the Commander-in-Chief say to the people who put a Kevlar vest on and a gun in their hip every day. I was a Border Patrol agent. I know what it's like at 3 o'clock in the morning to stand on a dirt trail in the middle of nowhere. Your backup's 12 miles away. A sensor went off, foot traffic. You're by yourself, middle of nowhere. And you're hiding in the brush, waiting for whatever's coming to come. Is it just a migrant looking for a better life? Or is it a heavily armed drug smuggler? They don't know, but they're going to take it on while you and I are sleeping. They're brave men and women. And this president and this secretary have abandoned them. The commander-in-chief said they didn't care about dying children. Just like that piece of garbage said I didn't care about dying children unless they were white. They deserve better than that. I buried a lot of them. Sometimes that person up the trail was not a good person, and we lost a life. And none of these people that want to ridicule the Border Patrol, they've never had to console a wife or child who have fallen. I have. Too many times. It's something you never want to see or do. And the President of the United States attacks them. Then they go after the Horse Patrol. I was in the Border Patrol. I know the rules of engagement. I saw the video. They did nothing. They did their job. The only ones that did anything wrong were the Haitian migrants. They entered a country illegally. Come on, that's a crime, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary. They entered the country illegally, that's a crime. Then they ignored verbal orders from a federal agent, which is a felony. They're the ones that did something wrong here. Border Patrol agents did their job and try and prevent a crime from occurring. Nobody was whipped. Where's the investigation? Where is it? Secretary said it'd be done in a matter of days. President said these men will pay. Where's the investigation? I'll tell you, the investigation is over. But they're not going to release it. You know why? Because they don't want to embarrass the president, the secretary, or these idiots on the Capitol Hill that said they were, well, Kamala Harris that said it conjures up images of slavery. They don't want to embarrass these people. So it's okay to throw the honor of the men and women of the Border Patrol in the toilet. Can you imagine being a Border Patrol agent, just a Border Patrol agent, and you go home at night to your family, and the President of the United States is calling you a racist, saying you're whipping people, and you're going to pay? They put their lives on the line for this country every single damn day. And that's what the Commander-in-Chief's going to say to them? We've all seen the video. That's a closed case. So where it is? Where's the investigation? It sickens me they'd rather protect the politicians in D.C. than defend the honor of the men and women wearing the uniform. I talked to one of those agents. Devastated. Still on the beach. For doing their job. Men and women of ICE, the people I used to have the honor of leading, they got no morale. They can't do their job. In the year of the biggest illegal immigration crisis on our border, where 1.7 people were encountered, that's what the government says is actually 1.9. Then you add the 600,000 gotaways, you got 2.5. That's the real number. The biggest illegal immigration crisis in the history of this nation, ICE had the fewest numbers of removals in the history of the agency, by design. The men and women of ICE are miserable. They can't do their job. Can you imagine being an immigration officer and the Secretary of Homeland Security says, if you find an illegal alien, you can't touch him? I don't see anybody telling California Highway Patrol you can't write speeding tickets. Name another law enforcement agency where your commanders tell you you can't do your job. When I was ICE director, 91% of everybody we arrested was a criminal alien. The Secretary of Homeland Security said, we're reprioritizing what ICE does so they concentrate on more criminals. Really? Because the report just came out. They arrested less criminals than they ever have. It's a lie. Another lie. This country is less safe under this president. Crime's running rampant. I just went off the sheriff of LA County, Villanueva, saw him again in an interview the other day, blaming the leftist district attorneys. I agree with him. But what's he doing? He releases hundreds of criminal aliens to the streets every day because he refused to work with ICE. So he likes, like everybody else, he points a finger. A gentleman approached me just before I come up here and wanted me to speak about sanctuary cities real quick, because I made the news and I was ICE director saying, you know, sanctuary cities, I'm home accountable because one of my officers get killed by somebody that got released from a sanctuary city, they're going to have hell to pay. When I was an agent with ICE, a long time ago, I arrested people for harboring illegal aliens at home or place of employment. So if the sheriff knows there's illegal alien in their jail, and ICE wants to talk to them because they run, when someone gets booked into jail, they run their fingerprints. What people don't know is when they run the fingerprints through NCIC, it also goes against the DHS databases, and ICE gets notified. So if we have fingerprints of someone we deported before, okay, this guy is sitting in LA County Jail right now, here's his name, here's his fingerprints, we know he's there, we know he's here illegally, we know he re-entered after being removed, which is a felony. If they don't give us access to that taxpayer-funded jail, is that not harboring? So I made a comment on Fox News, said we need to hold him accountable. What's that mean? You prosecute him? I said, it's up to DOJ, but I think if I can arrest a citizen for doing it, why can't I arrest a politician or sheriff for doing it? Is it about public safety or not? So sanctuary cities in California are the worst. You know, you guys, God help you. Newsom, he's a moron, right? He passed SB 54. I was telling a story before I got here. When I was ICE director, I got called by a media, said, hey, you want to comment on what Newsom called you? I said, what did he call me? I won't say it here, but he called me something pretty nasty about 100 times in several emails. They said, you got a comment? I said, yeah. Governor Newsom, he called me that? I wear it with a badge of honor. Because he's an idiot. Of course, they didn't quote me. But you guys are in bad shape. Then you got Nancy Pelosi. Kamala Harris, you got a history of incompetence from the state. So for you guys in this room running for office, thank God you're stepping up. Get in the fight. Let's take this country back. I want to end with this. I can go all night. I'll just end with this. Like, regardless of what you think about this issue, folks, we got to start raising hell. We're losing our country. That's what I love about President Trump. He wasn't always smooth with words or texts. But I spent many moments with him in the Oval Office on Air Force One. I'm actually going to be with him tomorrow. I'm going to take a red eye out here tonight and heading over to see him tomorrow. He loved this country. He loved it. He wanted the United States where everybody flew the American flag on their front porch. He wanted the country I grew up in. And, you know, I'm not that old. Well, this ain't the same country I grew up in. We got to take it back. And I'm not just talking about the presidential election. You need to start taking back your school boards. You need to start taking back mayor and city council. We got to take the country back because the country I love, many places I don't recognize it anymore. Well, people ask me all the time, says, you know, why do you get so emotional when you testify in front of Congress? And I lose my temper on Fox sometimes. And that's only because of the things I saw in my career. I want to share a few of them with you. I'll get through it. I always choke up during one of these stories, but I won't do it tonight. I had a Red Bull. I'm feeling good. But I want you to understand, why is Tom Homan the way he is? Why am I fighting so hard? Why I get angry? When I was in a border patrol, I found many dead migrants on the trail. It's sad. The smugglers don't care. Because once they die, they're not worth anything to them. They're not going to get paid at the end of the trail. I remember a father walking up that his daughter, he was with his daughter's fell in a snake pit. Rattlesnakes. What a horrible way to die. Smugglers didn't care. Father come looking for help when he found us. That little girl deserved better than that. I'm not anti-immigrant. This country's made of immigrants. I'm anti-illegal immigration. Because people die. And the bad guys make a lot of money. When we first became ICE, I was in Dallas giving a speech at the International Chiefs of Police, and I get a call from headquarters. They knew I spent most of my career in alien smuggling and human trafficking investigations, so they sent me down to Victoria, Texas. I went down there with the clothes in my back. They took an Air Marine charter down there. I get down there in the Texas Ranger walking through the crime scene. There's 19 dead folks in the back of a tractor trailer. I grew up in a town of 2,500 people. Only dead person I ever saw was my grandma in the casket. Here I am now, fast forward, I'm staying in the back of a tractor trailer with people that suffocated to death in the back of a steel box. All were in their underwear because they stripped down trying to get some sort of relief. And of course, when they got in their underwear, the steel floor burned their skin. I got there in the crime photographer. I was walking around the scene telling him I needed pictures of what. And there's a 5-year-old little boy that was there wearing yellow underwear. And his father was on top of him, cradling him, protecting him. And I told the crime photographer, we can't take a picture of that right now. I couldn't deal with it. So save him. Let's take care of the rest of the scene. And the story you saw me tell, I know beside him said a prayer. One of the reasons I take this so personal, what do you think his last 30 minutes was like? Suffocating to death, 177 degrees. That's what they thought the temperature of the back of the tractor trailer was. looking at his dad for help. His dad couldn't help him. They're locked in the back of a steel box. What do you think his dad was going through? His dad put him in that position. So many people are crammed in that tractor trailer. They were dying standing because there was no place to fall. I did say a prayer for that little boy. I have nightmares to this day over it. I had a 5-year-old son at the time. I can only see my son's face. That how lucky I was to be born in such a country where my son wasn't put in that position. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. Cartels don't give a shit about these people. And when you open the border, the way the Biden administration does, the most vulnerable people in the world will put themselves in the hands of criminal cartels. After that Victoria incident, matter of fact, we put all 16 in prison, for God's sakes. One of my proudest moments. Right after that, I went to Phoenix, Arizona, Operation Ice Storm. Cartels were ripping aliens off from one another because they were worth so much money. So they put them in a stash house waiting for the relatives to send payment. When they make an agreement, we to Chicago for $8,000. Then they get the migrant into the stash house. They call the relatives up and say, okay, we're waiting on the $15,000. No, you said it was 8. Well, now it's 15. Well, we can't afford it. Well, you're going to pay 15. Well, kill them. And they did. Bodies were piling up in Phoenix. They sent me to run Operation Ice Storm. One of the migrants, they actually called his sister up, said she couldn't afford it, and they tortured him and made his sister listen on the phone. One migrant died with 22 stab wounds to the face. The one sister was brave enough to call us. Of course, we did our thing with tracking phones, and we rescued that man. And when we found him, he was locked in a closet, hands and feet bound behind his back. His entire face was duct taped with a hole poked with a straw. That's how he breathed for days. That's why Tom Homan's pissed off, because this can be fixed, and President Trump got us a long way there. Then this administration came in and tore it all apart. And that pisses me off. Not because I'm an egomaniac, because people are dying. I've interviewed children, little girls, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old that were raped multiple times. I talked about humanity on the board. The only humane part of this whole thing is the Border Patrol agents. Last time I was on the Rio Grande Valley, I went out with the group, and the Border Patrol arrested just shy of 200 in a matter of 20 minutes in this one little area. Had this big group there. And this is what broke my heart, because there was this little girl there. She couldn't have been 8, 9, 10, all by herself. She wasn't, her family wasn't there. The look of sheer terror in her face wanted you to go up, and you just made you want to cry. This little girl was scared to death. And this Border Patrol agent, bigger than me, knelt down to her, talked to her in Spanish. I know what he said, but I won't share it with you, because I speak Spanish. For quite a while, and that little girl cracked a smile, gave him a hug. He picked her up and carried her the rest of the evening until he got to the processing center. The only humanity on that board of men and women wearing the green uniform, and this commander-in-chief attacked them. He attacked them, he attacked the horse patrol, and they deserve better. Another reason I'm pissed off. So let me tell you what gets me from day to day. I'm going to end it right here. What gets me going day to day is I keep suing them. I keep talking about it. They're not going to shut me up. And for the half of the people that hate me, wear my shoes with 34 years and then tell me you hate me. Because I've seen some terrible things I just want to try to prevent. And what keeps me going is that I was doing a Fox show a couple months ago in the morning, Fox and Friends, I think. And I lost my temper as usual. Because, you know, they know how to piss me off. Go say something to get me going. The other day it was about Secretary Mayorkas said, oh, Mayorkas says You know, the reason this must have border because you guys dismantled the system. Of course, I went off. I was on Hannity. And for once, Hannity, and once he didn't get to talk, I wouldn't let him because I was too busy yelling. Well, I did a show a couple months ago. It was in the morning, and I lost my temper. And finished the show. I took my mic off, my earpiece off, and my phone rang. It was President Trump. It was Tom. Just watched you. Great job. He goes, thanks for your support. You always support me. I said, look, I support you because you secure the border better than we ever had it. We need to get back to that. So I have no problem defending what we did. Yeah, did a good job. He goes, hey, two things. I said, all right. What? First of all, that picture behind you. Is that you and me when I gave the National Security Medal? I said, yes, sir. He goes, blow it up. I can't see myself. Okay, I get right on that. And here's what made my day. And here's what I count on every day. He says, number 2, stop getting so pissed off. You and I will fix this shit in 2024. And I'll tell you this. I'll tell anybody this. I shook his hand. I gave my commitment. He comes back, I come back, and we will fix this shit.
As I wander back here. What do you think about the governors who are resorting to taking things into their own hands because there's not much federal protection? Governor Abbott, and now there's a gubernatorial candidate from New Mexico who's got some ideas.
I think it's awesome. If the federal government's going to advocate the responsibility to defend our borders, and the state governor should do it. And I applaud Governor Abbott. He should be the Secretary of Homeland Security, not the one we got, because he's done more to secure our border than anybody. I have a good relationship with the governor and his attorney general staff over there. I filed affidavits with him, and every person he arrests for criminal trespass is one less getaway. Every pound of fentanyl he takes off the street is many, many less deaths. So Governor Abbott's doing a good thing now. There's discussions going on. The Attorney General of Arizona just did a legal analysis of the constitutional invasion clause. He thinks what we're dealing with is an invasion. So there is something more. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but there's a lot of constitutional scholars who believe the states can enact the invasion clause of the Constitution and actually start enforcing immigration laws since the government's advocated responsibility. And I hope they look at it. Because, look, we got to do something. As I explained, if it's not for the deaths, if it's not for the overdose deaths, if it's not for the illegal immigration, if it's not for all these other reasons and disease, national security alone should be a big enough reason. This country, we're in trouble. What's happening on this border is a national security issue of huge proportions. So something needs to be done. Anything legal that can be done needs to be done. Because this president, this secretary have failed American people. They dishonored the oath they took when they took that office, and they need to both leave.
We have a question about I guess the influence in California. Are cartels buying political influence here?
I don't know. I don't know. I know a lot of cartels' money makes it to the United States, and there's some things. I'm going to be honest with you. There's some things I know, but I'm not allowed to talk about because I do still maintain a secret clearance, top secret clearance. So let me say this: if it's happening, it's being investigated. Let me leave it at that. The simplest question, I don't know. I kind of do, but I can't tell you.
During the year following,
I can tell you this. Here's what should scare you. And I heard this from 3 chief patrol agents that are on the border. They have all said, we have lost operational control of our southern border. The United States of America no longer controls our southern border. They cannot stop the influx. They can't control it. They can't contain it. The criminal cartels of Mexico control our southern border. And that's just scared the hell out of everybody.
And if Title 42 is allowed to expire, how many total immigrants do you think will be crossing the border, including the, quote, gotaways?
You can see, I think you got better than 3 million. Because, you know, at 67,000 gotaways before Title 42, if that goes to 150,000, you got well over 1 million just the gotaways. And the administration last year got 1.7 million, according to them. Well, they removed over 1 million to Title 42. Do the math. You're up to over 3 million already. And again, it doesn't have to happen. Even if the secretary doesn't control the CDC, he can put the Mexico program back in full-fledged across the board, and that would help. But he won't.
Okay, so 3.3 million you just said?
Over
And
3 million.
I just want to remind people the population of San Jose is just a little over 1 million, so that, you can put that in some perspective.
And if people want to know, I should address this. People say, where do you get the got-away number? The got-away numbers are based on camera traffic, drone traffic, and sensor traffic that Border Patrol can't respond to, but they're counted. So there's not some thought-up number. There's actually a data point where they get that number.
Mr. Homan, one of our guests says, I'm having a hard time believing that President Biden is actually calling the shots. Who's actually controlling the border?
Controlling our borders is the cartels in Mexico control our border.
What about these midnight flights? Governor Abbott wants to bust the people that they put on these flights to Delaware and to Washington, D.C. Is there something even more nefarious going on when we send flights of people, mostly young men?
It's like I said earlier, they're taking them to their final destination. So, of course, they're doing it in the middle of the night because they're ashamed of what they're doing. They can't sell this. You know, you can't have a secretary come up on stage and say the border's secure and closed while you're busing thousands and flying thousands of people around the country. So they do it at night, so it's less attention. Thank goodness you got people like Fox News catching them. So it's a part of the facilitating of illegal immigration in this country, sponsored by the U.S. government and the taxpayers' money.
Tom, historically, the FBI have been about the most credible sources in a courtroom. I think you might agree with that. We saw this drama unfolding with the, quote, kidnapping case with the governor of Michigan. What happens if the FBI loses credibility in the courtroom?
Let's hope to God they don't. I think the FBI, in my opinion, has become politicized. I think they need a director that gets back to the basics, that they're a criminal investigation division. That's what they should be doing. That's what they're good at. Look, they're good at terrorism investigations. They have their talents. It's the leadership that needs to change. But I know FBI agents, they're great patriots, but they're only as good as their leadership and what their leadership allows them to do.
We have a question about law enforcement historically supporting Democrats. Have they been thrown under the bus, and is this changing?
Law enforcement supporting Democrats. I disagree with that. But President Trump got endorsement of every major law enforcement agency in this country when he was running for president. And as I said earlier, President Trump has proven he has their six of not only law enforcement, but military and first responders. Joe Biden, I don't think, got one endorsement from one major law enforcement entity when he was running.
I think the question was about maybe unions, police unions, et cetera. But let's shift over to children. Are there a lot of children that are actually crossing the border with adults that are not actually their family, but that are actually being trafficked? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's happening a lot. When I was the director, we did a DNA test pilot in some areas of the border, and we found in some areas as high as 30% of the family units weren't even related. And we had several investigations where the child was rented by traffickers to a single adult Of course, they knew as family they wouldn't be detained, they get released, the child was sent back to be re-rented again. So, again, terrible, terrible. Who knows what that child's going through? But it does happen a lot. Trafficking of women and children right now, sex trafficking, is at an all-time high, again, because you got an open border.
Yeah, it's so tragic. It's really hard to imagine how traumatizing that would be. As someone who's testified before Congress, our audience member says, do you think television hearings have had a net positive or a net negative? And they ask secondarily if you have any humorous experiences on the job or the strangest smuggling operation.
Well, I think televised testimony are necessary. I mean, I'm glad mine was televised because like I said, you know, they're not under oath. I am. The witnesses are. You know what I like to do? I like to put them under oath. Let me ask them a few questions.
That would be most entertaining.
But truly, if you're in these hearings, why not put members of Congress under oath? Then it won't be so brazen on things they say that's just totally inaccurate and all politicized. Everybody in the hearing should be placed under oath.
I think that's a fantastic idea. How could we make that happen?
I don't know. But, yeah. I'd like to ask them a few questions under oath. But I think hearings ought to be televised, but I would like to get back to where the hearings are about identifying a problem and Congress actually fixing something. You know, what has Congress done for this country? Think about it. What have they done? Good. AOC, what the hell has she done for this nation? What has any of the progressive left done good for this nation? Congress as a whole. I mean, they want to abolish ICE, and they need to abolish themselves. Because I think ICE does more for the security and safety of this nation than they do. I'm just, the last couple of testimonies on the Hill, I was just amazed how politicized they come, and, you know, I don't think I'm all that, but I've never seen a hearing where they attacked a law enforcement officer spent 34 years doing what they told him to do. I mean, they wrote the law. And for everybody who wants to throw ICE on the bus, ICE isn't making any of this stuff up. ICE is enforcing the laws enacted by Congress. If they don't like it, change the law. So I think it's important that people pay attention to what happens on the Hill, because you can see who's incompetent, and there's a lot of them.
I think there's a lot of support in this room. I know there's a lot of support in this room for law enforcement. In fact, actually, if you are part of law enforcement or the military in any way or related to anybody in law enforcement or the military, would you please stand up so we could recognize you?
Thank you for your service.
Yeah. So one of the people in the audience has a question about the corruption of the political corruption of law enforcement. And he says, which is the least corrupted? Which law enforcement network? Is it the U.S. Marshals? Are you able to measure who is least affected by political corruption?
The vast majority of law enforcement are fantastic men and women that join for the right reasons. Are there bad cops? Yeah. Well, they're a minority. And like I said, when they want to defund the police, a few bad cops don't make the whole institution bad. So, have I ever worked with a bad cop? Yeah. But the vast majority of people I worked with were doing it for the right reason. Look, these guys aren't making a lot of money. I mean, Borchula's making 60, 65,000. I forget what they make, but most of them are doing it for the right reasons, and the bad ones need to be identified and get out. But the vast majority of law enforcement, I love every one of them because I've done it. You know, a lot of people in the room go to their office or whatever job you have, which is helping this nation, but they strap a gun to their hip every day to cover our arrest. You got to give them credit. The vast majority are just good people. They're patriots, I think. Law enforcement leadership, I got a different opinion on some of that, but for the men and women out there doing the job, I think most of them are doing the right thing for the right reasons.
I think you'd have a lot of agreement about that in this room. I have a question about civilian response. Can a civilian group be formed to secure the border? Like these massive truck convoys, get thousands of volunteers to stem the flow. Is that something that we could have a call to action for that would be legal and practical?
Enforcement of immigration law is a federal responsibility, so this supremacy clause would, prevent. I know there's a lot of militias down the border. My personal opinion, I may upset people in the room, but I just don't support it. It's a tough enough job as it is. A lot of support can be given to the Border Patrol.
How do we do that, Tom?
A number of reasons. First of all, you give to the Border Patrol Council. I mean, there's a group that takes care of Border Patrol agents. Look, there's been a lot of suicides. These men and women are working 24/7. It's a thankless job right now for them. I mean, they're proud to wear the uniform, but they feel like they're not making a difference. Like I said, one officer said he feels like he's part of a big smuggling operation now. They got a lot of struggles, and they see a lot of terrible things. Just like I described it. I only give you a few things I've saw. And I'm handling okay, but some don't. These are mothers and fathers, sons and daughters and brothers and sisters too, and they're dealing with tragedies every day down there. So there's an organization within the Border Patrol Welfare Club, that helps these guys get some help, helps their families. Sickness coming across the border, whether it's measles, chickenpox, which measles, a lot of measles comes across the border, TB. Border Patrol agents get infected and take it home to their families. So Border Patrol families, especially under this controlled Congress, when they said the Border Patrol is racist, they continually attack the men and women of the Border Patrol as being inhumane and anti-immigrant. Wives and children of Border Patrol agents have been bullied in churches and schools. They need your uplifting. And if you want to help the Border Patrol, reach out to the Border Patrol Welfare Association.
The Border Patrol Welfare Association.
And it's actually run by Nuria Vitello, and they could use your help.
Okay.
And they can use your help just, if you see a Border Patrol agent, say thank you. Shake their hand. Same with an ICE agent. They don't get that. I have never walked by, when I was ICE director, I've never walked by a uniformed Border Patrol agent, not stopped and shook his hand and thanked him. And let him know what class of Border Patrols. The thing is, probably the Marines are the same way. What class are you in? Well, I was in the 167. So I meet a lot of Border Patrol agents. Sir, what class are you in? 167. So you must be retired now, right? Because that's a long time ago. I said, well, I'm not retired yet, you little. But these men and women, look, all they want is recognition that their job is difficult and they're doing a tough job. Like I said, they saved thousands of lives last year, and no one talks about it. And like I said, these guys are getting beat up every day. Suicides are up. They're taking their own lives. Law enforcement in general across this country is being attacked by the left. Now they're trying to change their tune. They want to refund them because the midterms are coming up, but they've been against them from the beginning. But if you want to help the Border Patrol agents out, let them know you support them.
Okay, we will do that, and we'll get a specific link from Tom after the program, and we'll be sure to get that out to our membership. Tom, do you want to say something about China and the fentanyl coming across the border?
Well, most of the ingredients that create fentanyl come from China. A lot of it was sent from China through the Postal Service, but we've successfully shut a lot of that down. Now most of it being sent to Mexico, being made in Mexico and coming across the border. DEA has come out and said 95% of the fentanyl is coming across the southwest border. And why? Because with the current surge the way it is, 40 to 50%, not my number, Border Patrol's number, 40 to 50% of the Border Patrol is no longer on the line. They're changing diapers, making baby formula, processing family units. So when you got half the Border Patrol off the line, that's when that cartel's going to take advantage of it. If people think these large family groups come by accident, they don't. No one crosses the border without greasing the palm of the criminal cartels. If you do, they'll kill you. So the cartels purposely, they'll send a group of 200 family units through this one sector, knowing that Border Patrol have to all jump down to deal with that humanitarian issue. Then they'll move the drugs, the gang member guys to the unprotected area. And for example, you all remember the 15,000 Haitians on the bridge. The secretary says all going to be deported, and weren't. He brought every agent from the sector in to deal with that crisis because they care more about the optics of the crisis than the crisis itself. Because if there isn't overcrowding, nothing to see here. and they get away with it. So he brought everybody in to process them as quickly as possible. When he did that, 224 miles of border were unguarded for weeks. 224 miles of border, not a single border patrol agent was on duty. And criminal cartels do that on purpose. They run the border.
That
They
is really
decide who
mind-boggling
crosses.
to think of hundreds of miles completely unguarded. What does the cartel make on average per person that they smuggle? And you just said something that really kind of jumped out in my mind. You said no one crosses the border without greasing their palms. So it's not just people who they've arranged to pay for, but anybody else who happens to be trying to do it on their own?
The alien smuggling cartels, alien smuggling organizations have to pay the drug cartels who control the plazas. So if you're an alien smuggling organization, you're not operating that plaza unless you pay the drug cartels. Now, there's so much money in it right now. That's why you see all the violence in Mexico. There's so much money being made right now, more than ever. They're attacking each other because they want to control the business. So that's what's happening. But no, if you try to cross the border without getting the okay from the cartels, if they find it, they'll kill you. That's just a stone cold fact. A lot of migrants have died in Mexico. But again, if this country needs low-level labor, then think of a legal way to do it so they can come to the port of entry with a visa rather than paying a criminal cartel. But until someone convinces me, Department of Labor, that there's a need for a certain segment of population to be employed, first thing we need to do is secure the border. That's just the bottom line, secure the border. President Trump did that. He secured the border at the highest level. If he would have got 4 more years, who knows what we'd be like today. And hopefully we'll get back there again.
You used a number, you said something about 67,000. What was that? What was the reference to?
67,000 gotaways last month.
Last month. So just to remind our audience, 67,000 is about Los Gatos and Los Altos combined. That's that many people being absorbed into the country in 1 month.
Well, the scary thing is from 157 countries. So who are they? Like it says, the odds don't favor us. A lot of these countries sponsor terrorism. They arrested aliens from Iraq, North Korea, Afghanistan, Syria, Turkey. I mean, there's some bad people crossing that border. Now, they will say, well, you got no evidence of that. Okay, well, when I was ICE director, we detained no suspected terrorists. Where did they come from? So bottom line is, Border Patrol arrested 16 on the FBI screening database. That's who they arrested. Like I said, terrorists don't want to be arrested, so they're obviously stupid. They got arrested. They're going to try to get around it. And look, the criminal cartels don't care who they smuggle across the border as long as they're getting paid.
Yeah. So there are a couple of questions about the energy and the focus that we're putting on concern about the Ukrainian border as opposed to our own. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, look, we're spending a lot of money in Ukraine. Look, God bless them. I think if there's any real refugees, it's probably them. Because the numbers speak for themselves on Central Americans. Like I said, the vast majority don't qualify for asylum. And they're clogging up the system of people that really need our help. There's people in this world that really do need our help. They really do need asylum for this country. Well, look, for anybody who thinks this country is selfish, we're the most giving country in the world. We welcome more migrants to this country every year legally than any other country in the world, most combined. This is a very giving country. So, you know, the asylum laws need to be enforced. And if you want to fix this once for all, change the asylum law. Like I said, 90% don't qualify. But why in the country? Because at the first interview at the port of entry, they got a very small threshold. They got to say a few key phrases. They're let in because the criminal cartels teach them exactly what to say. But then they get in front of a judge, they're nowhere near close to qualifying. That's why I've told Congress when I was talking about the 3 loopholes, you need to close that threshold. Make that first interview closer to the threshold of the judicial interview, because you're releasing people that don't qualify. As far as the children, you want to stop child trafficking? Treat children from Central America the same as you treat children from Mexico. If you're from Mexico and is ascertained you're the victim of trafficking, you're immediately returned to Mexico. Why aren't we doing it for Central America? No good reason. We shouldn't. And the final thing I'll say is that the families, the reason so many come across because they can't be detained long enough to see a judge. We did that under Obama administration. We held them in detention, took about 30 days, 35 days to see a judge, 90% lost. We put them on airplanes, sent them home. The numbers tanked. Then the Ninth Circuit, in their wisdom, came back and said, you can't hold them for that many days. Well, and in my affidavit in that lawsuit, I said, if you do this, if you don't let us home law see a judge, you're going to see a huge family migration in this country. Of course, Dolly G., the judge, said I was a fearmonger. I had no evidence of that. Well, we all see what happened. I was right. So you can fix those 3 loopholes. You can solve a lot of this crisis. But with this president, this secretary, they have no intention of fixing this.
Tom, we so much appreciate you being with us tonight. We know you have a plane to catch, but I would like to have a final question, and that is to give you the opportunity to give some marching orders to this collective. What would you like us to do going forward to support your work?
Raise hell. Look, we got to stop being, you know, and I don't take it the wrong way, but we got to be street fighters. I mean, we got to start raising hell. We need to hold people accountable. You can't be silent anymore. And I love this country. I'd die for it. I think many in this room would. We got to speak up. We got to hold people accountable. Like I told her, you know, she works for me. I don't work for her. They work for us. They're accountable to us, not the other way around. And look, if you don't like the way this nation's going, I'll tell you, even if you got a Republican senator or congressman, if people, well, what do we do? Democrats control Congress. You got a Republican senator? You got a Republican congressman? To ask them why the hell they're sitting down talking about infrastructure. Why are you talking about anything? Why aren't you boycotting anything the Democrats want to come to the table until they show you just one thing? I'll tell you what, we'll talk about infrastructure as soon as you show me one thing you're doing to secure the border. Show me one thing. At some point, this has become a national security. I'm not trying to say, you know, there's enough stalemate in Hill. I get it. But this is a national security issue. I'm telling you. If you listen to anything I say tonight, this country is in deep, deep trouble from the national security's perspective. If so, you got a Republican congressman or senator say, what the hell are you doing? They'll all run down the border to their dog and pony shows. Then they get back to D.C., they do nothing. And I'm calling out some Republicans too. There's some strong Republicans on border security. There's some that just keep ditching the question. Hold them accountable. See, you know, you work for us. You're accountable to us. What are you doing to solve this crisis? But the most important thing we can all do is get to the voting booth. Like I said, not just for Congress, school board, mayor, city council. We got, you know, I come from a small town where I grew up. Everybody had a flag on their front porch. The most patriotic town. We lived right outside of Fort Drum, New York. The military kept that town surviving. I love going back there because it's still a piece of heaven. We're still very patriotic. And by the fact that you're in this room tonight, it tells me you're a patriot. We keep fighting, raise hell, and hold them accountable. We got to hold them accountable. They work for us, not the other way around. And we need to take the country back.
Ladies and gentlemen, raise hell from Tom Homan. Tom, thank you so much. This was so terrific. Your voice is credible. You bring in credibility, integrity, tenacity, and heart to our nation, and you are a great gift. Thank you so very much.